Welcome on the news, and in our very first story, Speaker of Parliament Alban Bagbin has revealed that the Chieftaincy Minister Ebenezer Kojokum was within the precincts of Parliament during last Tuesday's proceedings. This was after the Northern MP Samuel Okudzeto-Ablakwa raised objections to the name of the Ahanta West Member of Parliament being registered as present during Tuesday's proceedings. The ranking member on the Foreign Affairs Committee argued that the said MP was not present in the chamber. But the Speaker observed that the bedridden MP was brought to Parliament in an ambulance and was within the precincts of Parliament.
He's been marked as present. We all know the situation. We have been praying for him and wishing him well. I do not believe that he was here. At least before we walked out, he wasn't here. He's my very good friend. I know him very, very well. And I continue to pray for him and wish him a speedy recovery. Mr. Speaker, he wasn't here. So our records must reflect that he was not in the chamber.
You didn't listen to me.
No, Mr. Speaker, I listened to you. I'm saying that I didn't see him in Parliament. I'm not aware that he was in the precincts.
No. Initially, that was what you meant.
Yes.
But when you specifically said he was not here on the floor.
Yes, but...
And that's when I came and said, you didn't listen to me.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, I was going to elaborate further.
On the floor, you were going to elaborate.
No, I wasn't done. I was making the point that in the chamber, I didn't see him. And when we stepped out, we didn't see him at the precincts.
You are a lover of social media.
Yes.
And I'm sure you watch the social media and all the clips. Yeah. And I myself saw how he was brought in the ambulance. In your submissions on the floor,
yes,
a lot of your members acknowledge the number that was present on their side.
Yes, 136.
And the one that you acknowledge that was not present was only Honorable Adjoa Safo. That a number of your members' contribution on the floor today.
But the Honorable Ahmed.
Please. Don't belabor the point.
Well, Right Honourable Alban Bagbin has also directed the Table Office to officially indicate that the question for the approval of the adoption of the Finance Committee's report on the e-levy during last Tuesday's proceedings was put after the minority staged a walkout.
Levy Bill 2021 accordingly read a second time. Just in between the 7 and 8, that's where our walkout needs to be recorded. But that was the stage at which we staged our walkout, and it has to be captured appropriately.
Actually, it should come before question put and motion agreed to. Because the walkout happened before I put the question and the motion agreed to. That is the appropriate position for it. So, Table Office, kindly correct the records accordingly. Majority Deputy Leader.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, just a little clarification. My respected colleague, the Minority Chief Whip, indicated that they walked out at a certain time. And you clarified the position by saying that the walkout was actually announced before the vote, the question was put. That is correct. What I just wanted to put on record was that although the announcement was made by the Minority Leader on the walkout, however, the question was put at the time they were proceeding out. Yeah, Mr. Speaker, that's and Mr. Speaker, we don't need to split heads on this matter. Mr. Speaker, we don't need to split heads on this matter. If since they are at the Supreme Court and they say they will take the audio visuals and the videos and everything, when they get there, the Supreme Court will watch. your whatever. I won't fight you over this. But I am saying that at the time the question was put, some of you were still in the chamber walking out. You were moving out. You were carrying your books. You were packing. But I'm not contesting. It doesn't change the issue. It does not. The question, the issue is that at the time you announced the walkout, the question had not been put, and Mr. Speaker is right. However, your walking out was not instantaneous. It took time. So eventually, when the question was put, some of you were still in the chamber.
Many of them.
If you are challenging me, the video will speak for me. Mr. Speaker, that is all.
Is the essence of this submission. You are a leader. You heard me expatiate on these issues. As to when you talk about attendance. So why are you raising this? I actually put the question after the walkout. That is different from attendance to Parliament. They walked out. I am clear in my mind what I do in this house. And I can defend myself anywhere, even in the International Court of Justice.
And that was the Right Honourable Speaker of Parliament. Now, Chief State Attorney Evelyn Kilson claims the founder of defunct Capital Bank, William Atuesian, and businessman Dr. Tete Nete dishonestly took 130 million Ghana cedis from the Capital Bank. She says this money was used to set up the defunct Sovereign Bank. The two, together with former Managing Director of Capital Bank, Fitzgerald Odonko, have been slapped with 26 charges, including stealing various sums in excess of 260 million Ghana cedis. Court correspondent Joseph Akable has a wrap of Thursday's proceedings.
The state alleges that the actions of William Atuesian, Dr. Tete Nete, and Reverend Fitzgerald Odonko led to the collapse of the bank. Documents filed in court states that between June 2015 and November 2016, the Bank of Ghana provided a total sum of 620 million cedis as liquidity support to Capital Bank to enable it meet its capital adequacy ratio. Mr. Essien is alleged to have been aided by Fitzgerald Odonko to transfer a sum of 120 million cedis of the liquidity support to All Time Capital Limited. The three individuals are said to have caused a transfer of 100 million cedis to a company which had Mr. Nete as its managing director. Mrs. Kilson on Thursday cross-examined Dr. Tete Nete. She accused him of being part of the plot to dishonestly take money from Capital Bank to set up Sovereign Bank. Dr. Nete disagreed. Mrs. Kilson pressed on, insisting that Dr. Nete was well aware that the said shareholders of Sovereign Bank, including himself, did not provide any money to set up the bank. She stated that documents made available to the court clearly shows Dr. Nete was in the know about these transactions. The accused person disagreed yet again. He insisted that in his case he did not provide any money as a shareholder because he held the shares on behalf of Mr. Essien. He continued that he, together with Mr. Essien, signed documents confirming that he held the shares on his behalf. He concludes that these documents were not in his custody because Mr. Essien refused to provide him copies of the documents. The case has been adjourned to April 7, 2022, where Reverend Fitzgerald Odonko, the former managing director of Capital Bank, is expected to open his defense.
Well, now, a planned further 15% increase in transportation fares has been put on hold by the Ghana Private Roads and Transport Union. Now, speaking shortly after a meeting involving players in the commercial transport industry, Public Relations Officer of the GPRTU, Abasi Moro, said they were informed by a reliable source in the course of the meeting that there would be a reduction in the prices of fuel today. He says the percentage of the reduction of prices at the pumps would determine the percentage of GPRTU's increase in fares.
For the public information, we are not happy with upward adjustment in lorry fares because we know it affects everything across board. But what else can we do? We have no choice. Without fuel, we can't run transport. And we are into serious commercial business if we don't increase our lorry fares alongside the upward adjustment in fuel prices. We cannot get to where we want to. So
Now, as part of government's measures to improve the creative arts industry, the Minister for Tourism, Arts and Culture is going to institute a creative arts fund to provide financial assistance to its industry players. This was revealed by the Deputy Minister, Mark Okreku Mante. Mausi Numon has more in this report.
Speaking at the launch of JACCD Institute's Africa's campus at North Legon, Deputy Minister Mark Okreku Mante said government is committed to fostering a supportive environment for creative arts professionals. He added this will be done through the establishment of a creative arts senior high school in Kumasi in the Ashanti region, as well as the provision of financial assistance to creative arts practitioners.
The Kufado's government maintains its commitments to create the enabling environment for creative practitioners to develop and grow the economics of the arts industry. And that is why, if you monitored his statement this morning, he mentioned the Creative Arts School in Kumasi, which is a senior high school. Again, his government has passed the Creative Art Bill into law. And so now we have the law that seeks to regulate the creative industry. The Creative Arts Agency, established by the Creative Arts Law, would have a Creative Arts Fund, which will also give some financial support to the people in the creative industry.
Founder and president of JACCD Institute, Joyce Abibio, charged creative arts teachers and instructors to be creative and innovative in the discharge of their duties. She was hopeful the contribution made by the creative arts industry to national development will be sustained.
I look forward to the university that will teach our students to be creative, imaginative, to think originality and unconventionally, to push boundaries, but above all, to teach them to be ethical, professionals, and inclusive, and of course, embrace the unknown. We are not here to reinvent the wheel, as they have been done 1,000 times, but we are here to assist our students in Africa and beyond to take the wheel and add their own solutions to make it better. This can be achieved through adapting critical circumstances and providing solutions.
David Kwesi Boydo, a fashion designer who exhibited some of his works, explained what informs his choice of fabric for any clothing line.
I'm much concerned about the environment. That's one of the most important things I think the whole world and the fashion industry is gearing towards. So it's more about sustainability and ethical, being ethical, that is focusing on the cultural heritage of the Ghana culture. So most of our pieces can be seen in our hand-woven northern smoke because.
Well, Ghana's hospitality industry, regarded as emerging, is ranked 4th in profitability in Africa. A number of investors have responded and are investing in the sector. But as the industry continues to grow, new avenues emerging are seeing a decline in investment along the value chain. There is more in this report.
The hospitality sector thrives on the natural human urge for adventure. Reports on Ghana's hospitality industry reveals that foreigners are major patrons. This means there is minimal local tourism. CEO, Corporate Vision Consult, Charles Kusi Apiakubi is positive about opportunities for tour operators in the private sector.
Tourism industry is the fastest growing industry in the world. And when we talk about tourism, we cut across all facets of the industry, from education, from health, from leisure, transportation. It cuts across every facet of the industry or the economy. So there's a huge investment opportunity. It's up to investors to identify which areas they want to place their investment in. And they are assured, especially investing in Ghana, a stable political environment, they are assured of getting good returns on their investment.
Aspects of the hospitality industry are expensive. This is due to the demand for resources like electricity, transportation, and multiple taxes. This has been a deterrent for many tourists.
The challenge has been our destination as one of the most expensive destinations in Africa or West Africa for the matter. So it's policy makers to look at what can we do to reduce the cost of spending in Ghana to attract more foreign tourists coming to spend their money in Ghana. There's always what we call the tourism economic multiplier effect, when money decides to circulate in the economy. That's foreigners or local dwellers spending their money in the system. It helps money to grow, it helps business to grow, it helps the tourism industry also to see boost in terms of growth.
To improve the capacity of staff in the hospitality industry and to create more jobs for women, Plan Ghana International has introduced the Passaway Project. Over 4,050 females will be trained in soft and hard skills to be productive in the hospitality sector. Richard Labi Asiedu is project coordinator of the Pathway for Sustainable Employment for Women and Youth.
We train the youth who are between the ages of 15 to 35 years who are desiring to work in the hospitality industry. We give them front office, housekeeping, kitchen operations, and the restaurant and bar, and then we support some of them to get into formal employment, and then others also we facilitate a business setup for them.
For Ghana's hospitality industry to be sustainably developed with its numerous opportunities, all stakeholders must cooperate to ensure visitors to Ghana get an experience to be cherished for a lifetime. Muna Lisa Frimpong reporting.
In our next story, the Bono East Regional Office of the National Road Safety Authority has, together with the leadership of the Pragya Riders Association, held a training session for hundreds of tricycle operators in the Techiman municipality. The move, according to the regional manager of the NRSA, Emmanuel Echampon Parry, is to sensitize the riders on road traffic regulations, as well as help reduce the number of road accidents involving motorcycles in the area. Anas Abed has more in this report.
Hundreds of these tricycle operators, mainly members of the Pragya Riders Association, were taken through various road safety tips by officers of the National Road Safety Authority, the MTTD, the Ghana National Fire Service, and the DVLA at the Techiman Zungo LA Park. The move, according to the regional head of the National Road Safety Authority, Emmanuel Echampon Parry, is to, amongst other things, improve the operators' level of awareness of road traffic regulations to help minimize the increasing number of road accidents involving motorcycles.
Today, we have met the Pragya and motor riders in the Techiman municipality, and we are training them to exhibit proper road safety skills on the road. We are giving them education so that when they are using the road, they'll be very, very careful. Last year, out of the 129 deaths that were recorded in the Bono East region, 85 were the deaths caused by the Pragya and motor riders, which is very, very alarming. Almost 65% of the problem came from the Pragya and the motor riders. So we thought it wise to bring them together, to train them so that we will see improvement in the coming years in terms of road traffic deaths and fatalities.
Municipal Chief Executive for Techiman, Benjamin Yabajako, lauded the leadership of the Pragya Riders Association for the training and noted that the Assembly would continue to support the riders in terms of promoting their operations.
It is always said that if you don't go for refresher training in the work or in your field of endeavor, you end up not knowing what is happening in your field of operation. So this is a very wake-up call that I commend the executives for initiating this meeting for their members. And I assure you once again that myself and my honorable MP, our MP, Honorable Martin J. Mensah, will continue to be our servants and then listen to you and then champion your cause at all levels to help promote your operations.
Chairman of the Pragya Riders Association, Awal Mohammed, appealed to authorities to legalize the operations of the tricycle business, which, according to him, will provide jobs for the teeming unemployed youth.
We can count about thousands of Ghanaians. Techiman alone, we are about 2,000 riders in Techiman. So, and I think that it is very, very important that Ghanaian authorities have a look at them and see that it is an industry that, when regulated well, will give more of our youth job.
With various restrictions imposed on the operations of these riders, some of them appealed to city authorities to ease some of these restrictions to enable them survive in this harsh economy.
As a concerned Praga rider in Techima, we have many challenges that we are facing. That is the limitation of our work time in Techima. It is really affecting us. So we are appealing to the Techima Traditional Council, the chief and its elders, to please come to our aid. Because the time they've given us to close work, 10 p.m., is really affecting us.
Abrena omodi amaye no ka omontwen kwa animu kakra nanka ebia emfiri anopa no nkosi anadwube edumienu minim se dumienu de na wiem atadi obi a ona ye de na ebia ya asoden ena na waye na adwen se mrana nananu ma hye no onni so.
Reporting for Joy News, Anas Sabit, Techima.
And on the back of that report, we draw the curtains on the AM News. But up next, the news review. Do stay. Thank you for staying with us. News review time. And you wouldn't imagine who is joining me this morning. Samuel Kojo Brace is in the studio, and he'll be helping me dig into the paper. Sam, good morning.
Hi, Ben. Good morning.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you, man.
Even before we get into the papers and what they are saying, what is your take on the back of the SONA 2022?
Well, I'm sure you have followed and know that especially the take on roads have generated a lot of discussion because a lot of people are asking several questions.
Honorable Agboja, and yesterday we heard responses come in and very interesting times because the claim is that the cocoa roads, take over 6,000 kilometers. And that government in itself has only put or brought to bear 4,000 plus kilometers. But they are saying they are lumping everything together, even the spot
spot improvements.
Improvements and all of that.
Yeah.
It makes for interesting dynamics.
Yes.
Because I've heard Engineer Mahama also say that, speak to us industry people and let's analyze this thing, break it down for us. So if the industry people themselves think some clarity is needed, it's a bit sketchy.
Even all of us are demanding answers. I'm thinking that the government could have been clear with us to say, the new was just, was maybe, because you are trying to justify new with explanation that everything you do on the road amount to construction. Even those of us who are not engineers know that if you are talking about new constructions, it's about you taking an unpaved road and then, covering it.
Right.
So if you come and tell us, spot improvement, all of that amounts to new constructions, that's you're not being sincere. And I was thinking the government could have just come out and say, look, it was just a slip to say they were new 10,000 kilometer roads. They weren't. New ones are probably 4,000 kilometers. We've done, re-asphalting and whatever amounting to this kilometers. But if you come out yesterday to again, a day after the president has spoken to say, there's 6,000.
To reiterate that. And you were on that beat. You followed the story. Yesterday I was listening to MFR Pau later in the evening, top story and all of that, and the conversation and how probably now we have to look at the definition of new.
Exactly, yes.
The word new has come to
and
the
she wanted
what does new really mean?
She wanted the man to tell us, maybe A and B roads amount to new.
Right.
And then C, D roads amount to re-asphalt. I just think they could have been frank with us. And then all of this, because look, if you come out to say, it was just a slip, we won't begrudge you.
Right.
But if you want to try your best to justify something that we know should not be, you find it difficult. And now people will ask you, tell us, Atibu Bukamantin road to probably this junction is a new road. Then we'll go there and say, is this thing a new road?
Because this place had no, I mean, the road had not been treated at all.
Yes.
And now we have something. Or
Exactly.
maybe it was a feeder road and
then
now you've asphalted.
Exactly.
That's a different story.
Yes. But now if they ask you and you tell us, oh, if you want me to tell you all the 10,000 kilometers, then that's a voluminous, bring us, we would read. Bring us that voluminous book. We would go through it and know if in Atebubu or in Somanya there is a new road somewhere. Then we can come out and say, oh, okay, whatever you said is true. But if you just say, oh, it's voluminous and so you won't give us, we'll demand it.
It was interesting because the point was made as well when she said that, okay, so you say you've constructed all these roads. Where are they?
Exactly.
And he said, I mean, it's so voluminous that you can't mention any of them.
Yeah. I'm just thinking government could have just gone ahead to say, look, it was just a slip. Let's leave it. We've done so and so new, so and so, I mean, asphalting or road patching, whatever, spot improvement. That could have saved them. But well, what they are taking us on, it doesn't help anybody, I think.
I don't know why. I feel if I were in politics, and I don't like our brand of politics in Ghana, I am not one for it at all. In the past, people have said different things, but I don't think I'm cut out for this kind of politics that we do in this country. Maybe international politics with the languages I use. But sometimes I think, why do our leaders not seize the opportunity to under-promise and over-deliver? Because it's one of the best ways of getting people to actually follow you, to even build a cult behind you. Under-promise, over-deliver. Our leaders rather over-promise and under-deliver. Time and again, that's what they do.
I remember
and I don't get it.
Kojo Yangson's early days at Joy FM. One of his morning messages was about promise less and do more. And that message stuck with me.
Right.
That even if you are to book an appointment with someone and you know you'll get there at, say, 6:30, tell the person I'll be there at 7.
Exactly.
And get there 6:30.
Right.
That's even better. So if I were one of those politicians, I'll say, oh, when I come, I'll buy you a graphic. And I end up buying you 5.
But is it not because they know, they gauge the temperature of the country? They know.
You are right.
They know they can promise and overpromise and everything. And we'll buy into it. We'll buy into it.
Yeah.
And after they've got what they've secured their votes, there's nothing you can do about it.
It's true. I think it's about the system. They know when they sweet talk us, we buy into it. But I'm thinking that we are becoming self-aware. A lot of Ghanaians are becoming critical over the years, and so you get to a point where you can no longer overpromise, but you have to be real with the people. We will get to that point. We will.
Slowly, we're getting there.
Sure.
Let's get into the papers. Daily Graphic now. $9 million Nissan assembly plant commissioned. Over 31,000 vehicles to be produced annually. That's a good thing because, indeed, once we are not, I mean, they bring whatever it is into the country and assembly is done here. It means that the cost of production is going to be lowered and the cost of purchasing these vehicles will also, you know.
So yesterday at the newsroom, I was asking that, can we do a follow-up to find out the affordability, like the middle class?
Right.
Can we afford these ones? If we can, then I think it's possible. But from however angle you look at it from, it's a good thing.
It is
because one, it's creating jobs.
Right.
It is sending out a right signal to the international
community,
space,
the international market.
That look, Ghana is rife for you to invest in because all of these car manufacturing companies are moving in. So we'll get a lot of these people moving in, and it creates jobs. We are talking about youth unemployment. These are ways by which you can be reducing that unemployment rate little by little. So it's a good thing if you look at it from any angle.
Well, I've always said that we could also do more for our homegrown industries, like Kantanka. Yes, I heard recently what was said, but I feel we could have done far more because this is us. If you look at how Volkswagen, what we call Volkswagen, started, folks, people, the common people, wagon, a vehicle. That's how it started.
Okay.
The commoner's vehicle. And today we all celebrate it. Oh, Volkswagen. But this is how these things start. And here in our country, I don't know what it is. We don't love our own. It's like that passage in the Bible where Jesus says a prophet is never, appreciated or loved in his own home. It's good that we're doing these, but how about growing some right here? Kantanka is now bringing in parts and assembling. What can we do to help? I feel we're waiting too long.
There was some announcement in recent time when the government said we're going to procure some of its vehicles for
right. That's exactly what I was alluding to.
And they did it.
Right.
And I'm thinking that is how you started. Create a market for the man. Let his product be bought.
Right.
So that he knows that when I produce, I have ready market for it. When you do that, then you can progress it. So can we move from assembling to say, maybe just bring in the engine?
Can we even invest? Because this is a local, enterprise. Can we even invest in it? Not as individuals, as a state.
Yeah.
With a stake in the entire enterprise to ensure that he develops economies of scale. If he develops economies of scale, it means he can sell his cars at lower prices, which means more and more people can afford to purchase the products, which means that we can also secure our market when it comes to automobile development. Any country that has developed or is considered developed has, whether it's even Italy or whatever, which has had problems with its automobile industry, they have an industry. Kumasi Magazine, what have we done with that? Kokompe, what have we done with it? So we started well in the days of Nkrumah. We started well, but look at us today.
I would agree with government investing, but I would say that if the state does, they should still allow Kantanka's structure to operate.
That's a very valid point.
You know how we behave in this country when the state is a majority shareholder in a certain entity, then everything has to come from the central government. So anytime there's a change, the MD or whatever has to change. The state can invest, but allow the Kantanka structure to work. And you are an investor. When he makes it, you get your share. And it's through that we can develop this institution.
Very valid point. Let me just wrap on the daily graphic. Domestic air travel surge record highest patronage in 8 years, and that's since the easing of the COVID-19 restrictions in the country last year. But there's also this one that I want to quickly, Bafana, the South Africans wanted us to lose, most of them at least. And this one, I will gently rub it in. I'll rub it in, but gently.
Okay.
So check like some pain day inside because we've qualified for Qatar. But anti-migrant vigilante group stokes tensions in South Africa. And I had to bring in this one because we know about the xenophobic attacks over the years. And shopkeepers pulled down their metal shutters and foreign staff stayed out of sight as hundreds marched through a Joburg neighborhood demanding that migrants leave and that their jobs go to South Africans. So this, I don't know, but South Africa seems not to be able to contain the situation. It's been going back and forth and only God knows when we'll get there.
Exactly. I wonder why they do that, because they should also know that they don't only live in their country. They have some of their citizens living in other countries as well.
Right.
If you do that in your country and someone else says that, okay, if that is it, then you also leave. How can we build it?
Back then, I saw one photo of some other national impaled. Basically, a metal passed through, I think, the buttocks through. It was just
it's
nasty.
Terrible. Yeah,
I think we should get past these.
Exactly.
But let's get into the
the Ghanaian Times. It says danger looms over old foreign ministry building. NADMO demands its immediate demolition, and it comes with a picture of a very, very old structure. And I wonder why Ghana would allow this structure to deteriorate to this level. It speaks of our.
You're in Ghana.
Yes. But,
over the years.
But I wonder why.
The old.
That is why.
The one in Tema, I've forgotten the name. There was one in Tema.
Okay.
I don't know whether it's still standing. I've forgotten. The old is the name that I forget. I mean, we have so many of these structures.
No, but you see, my point is.
Waiting disasters.
Why do we allow our structures to deteriorate to these levels?
It's because the systems don't work. Simply put, if your systems work, buildings after a certain number of years or decades, inspections will show that. Look, I know a building, right, very close to us, somewhere in Jolu. That building, I feel, should not be standing, even when you alert. I mean, it's a hopeless cause.
So question is,
that's the way it is.
When can we, as a country, change the way we do things, and not to say, oh, this is who we are? So would put money into a structure, and watch it deteriorate to a level that sometimes it becomes irredeemable. For example, look at how we are treating the Isipon Stadium.
Oh yeah.
In 2008, when it was built,
totally ridiculous.
I mean, it was in 2008.
You can add the Commander Sugar Factory.
Exactly.
You can add that to it.
Why do we do that to ourselves?
Why do we do these things?
I mean, I don't get it.
Self-inflicted.
When we have individuals who have been placed to manage these facilities.
Right.
Why do we find it difficult to manage them and to ensure that they are in existence for generations, such that about 100 years to come, our children will come and say, this is what our fathers bequeathed to us. But we allow them to deteriorate and then we have to pull them down. Right. Waste of resources, I think. And it's about time we change that part of it, but I don't know when.
Part of the problem is because we politicize everything, and sometimes instead of letting the right people with the know-how be there, we put square pegs in round holes, aka politicians.
That's why I was warning that when we invest in Kantanka, leave it for the man to run. Now, another story says, President has sent to e-levy act, new tax expected to take off in May. It comes with the President, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, signing on that particular document. Well, you know the aftermath of this bill. Yesterday, we were speaking to the secretary to the mobile money agent, and he was saying that they experienced huge withdrawals on the day this was passed.
People are not depositing.
Exactly.
People are not. They rather. People think it has started already, but that is something else that
it hasn't.
Disabuse the minds of people about. Sure. It hasn't started yet. Even if it's going to kick in, it's on the 1st of May.
Yeah.
But if you've listened to engineer Dr. Kenneth Ashigbe, you know, he has also raised concerns about the window
timeline.
And whether it will even suffice in terms of education and all of that. That is, if you are going to disabuse the minds of people. Some of us, people like me, I know what I'm going to do. I've made up my mind in terms of how I'm going to approach this, because in the end, you must be patriotic, but at the same time, you must be rational. I'm going to put the two together. How everybody approaches this will be different as to them. But I'm going to look at my own circumstances and deal with it appropriately. So yes, support where you can, but where I feel I can, you know, save myself, I'll do that. It's a rational choice. It's a purely economic choice. So you can't begrudge people for doing that. But I think I agree. More education is needed.
Exactly.
If government is going to mop up the money it requires, because in the end, if it's not able to do so, and if it's going to collateralize this and secure bonds and whatever, we'll all end up laughing at the wrong ends of our mouths.
Yeah, and then again, the question about, there are some exemptions. So
definitely.
Those exemptions would have to be trumpeted down there for people to understand that, look, A, B, and C will not attract it. And if I do this, I do that, it doesn't. Because like we know, if I am transferring from my account into my wallet, I'm told it's exempted.
The same to same transfers do, but same to other transfers attract.
And these are things that we need to allow the populace to understand, so that when someone is making his or her mind, he or she makes it on an understanding level. It's not because someone says A and that's why I want to do something, but it's because I understand the implications of what's happening. Yeah. I think let's wrap it up on that one. But there's an interesting story here on page, I think it's page 5. It says, women, children drawn fleeing Nigeria attack. A little of the lead, it says more than a dozen people, including women and children, fleeing attacks by armed gangs have drowned in the central Nigerian state of Niger when their boat capsized. That's a very, very sad one. I don't know when Nigeria would overcome this particular trouble of having armed gangs always terrorizing citizens. Yeah.
The armed insurgency in Nigeria is becoming something else. It's become especially rampant in recent weeks and months. And we pray for them. We pray for our brothers and sisters. Of course, we'll wallop them when it comes to football, but we'll pray for them when it comes to insurgencies.
We have to. Anyway, so that does it for me in the Ghanaian time. Just that because I love our Greek, let me bring this one in. Ghana receives 44.7 million euros grant from EU, France to build irrigation infrastructure in the north. We'll have to keep an eye on this particular story to know how it goes.
Daily Guide newspaper, Nana signs e-levy into law. NDC MPs fight Parliament staff. You remember the situation with the Clerk of Parliament, and the Speaker has come out to say it was oversight. It didn't involve any partisanship. We had quorum, says Bagbin, and Tetenete punches Ato Essien. President opens Nissan assembly plant. But the bit about Bagbin, have you noticed a bit of, I don't know, especially from the day of the e-levy till now, he's been a bit. I don't know. I don't know how the minority was covered. No, the stance has shifted a little.
I don't know. I don't know what.
Or is it?
Maybe he can no longer tolerate how things.
His side,
that
I feel his side too. I feel he may be frustrated with his side and some of the actions they've taken, because it appears in some instances maybe he may not exactly be in the know of the flow of events, and then when he's taken by surprise, you remember some of the comments he passed in recent times. He's been surprised by both sides, so I guess he feels, okay, let me also surprise you guys. Yeah, let's play that game.
But you see, the things were becoming quite tough. So I'm sure he sat down. Look, how do we have to allow this to keep making things difficult for our citizens? Let's keep rolling, and that's it. I'm not saying that's what it is, but I'm just saying that maybe he just sat down to say that, look, let's keep things running. That's why it happened. So, are you done with yours?
Almost. So Putin threatens gas supplies over ruble payments, and he's been saying that pay me in rubles. Interestingly, the G8, Germany together with the G7, are saying they are not going to comply. I'll be looking forward to seeing how that pans out. But I feel, yes, Putin may be playing his chess game. I feel the rest of them should also do same. In the end, Russian gas and the rest has it has dominated the scene. I feel if they want to wean themselves off of Russia, not completely, but as much as possible, as the EU has said that they want to shed about 2/3 moving forward, so they are not so dependent on Russia. I feel it's a good move, because I feel, in a way, Russia is also becoming overweening, and its wings must be clipped in some respect.
See, its wings have to be clipped there. Let's see how this goes, because, Putin is an intelligent guy. He was the director of their intelligence service.
I know, KGB.
Before. So this guy, I'm sure, knows exactly what he's doing. So let's see how this goes. But moving to the final news, if anybody who wants details about this statement from the road ministry, can go to the Finder, page 4. They've broken down everything there about the unpaved and paved and what have you. All of them are there. But there's one interesting story here on the front page. It says the best venture to invest in now is agribusiness. CEO of Beauty Solution Oasis.
I agree. Agribusiness. I've always wanted to go, for example, into cashew production, because I have a history with that. Cashew production. Yeah. Cashew is worth much more than cocoa. I don't know why we're not really focusing. What cashew will fetch you? 50 kilos or a ton of it. Cocoa will not fetch even, but here we are. We seem to be so limited in our thinking, but some of these are cost intensive, and that is the problem. But the bit also has to do with, for example, currently, you heard me interact with John Dumelo and others the other day about the cost of fertilizers, which partly on the back of what is happening in Russia and Ukraine. What are we doing with our own petroleum resources? Because these fertilizers, phosphate and the rest, they are derivatives. What are we doing in that regard? And even making farming, that enticing, attractive to young people. Now, everything has gone up. The cost of fertilizer, the cost of labor, the cost of tractors, the cost of this and that, everything has gone up. So when these things happen, even if you want to farm 1 acre,
in 2020, government brought up a plan to establish the Petroleum Hub project. I'm sure you are familiar with it, which is in Jomoro municipality. That plant, or that particular hub, was to have a fertilizer plant which would produce fertilizer for our farmers. So let's see how that particular one goes. But it's interesting how this would help us.
And recently there was talk of same as well. So we'll see how it goes.
But I'm sure the Tree Crop Development Authority would also attend to that to ensure that we're diversifying into a lot more cashew and what have you. So let's see how they also come up.
Now is the time to develop indigenous gas resources. Talu CEO feeding into what we are talking about. That's my final newspaper. And maybe you can just take us through the headlines of Republic Press and the Custodian.
Okay, all right then. Now, it says e-levy is law. Akufo-Addo pens signature. Bagbin blames Supreme Court for purported confusion over quorum as NDC accuses him of betrayal.
Right.
Okay, so let's end with that. Custodian says Akufo-Addo praises Dampare, says police gaining trust and confidence under new IGP.
Okay. Samuel Kojo Brace.
So,
thank you.
Thank you too.
I enjoyed this, man.
I enjoyed it too.
All right, it's a wrap for the news review, but coming up next, we bring your way sports right here on the AM show. Do stay.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to AM Sports with me, Muftaw Nabila Abdai. Today, Ghana will have an opportunity of knowing the group stage opponents for the World Cup 2022, which will be happening in Qatar. The country is one of the least ranked countries. Even in Africa, Ghana is not among the top 10 countries as they have been placed import for. We'll also be hearing from assistant coach of the Black Stars, George Boateng, who has been speaking about the draw, and he has a wish. And he thinks that Ghana should be playing a certain country he's very familiar with. And we'll wrap up with some Ghana Premier League stories as well as Ghana Premier League fixtures that will be happening on March Day 23. But first, let's start with the FIFA World Cup draw that will be happening in Doha later today. And Ghana is one of the least ranked countries as it's placed in pot 4 for the draw. We take a look at the fixtures or the pause for the draw, which was put out by FIFA following the rankings of March. And in pot 1 is a host nation, which is Qatar, followed by Brazil before Belgium. Brazil, because Brazil is the first ranked country in the world. They have been to every single World Cup since its inception in 1930. There's also a place for Belgium, who were semi-finals in the 2014 edition. There's a place for Brazil, France, Argentina, England, Spain, and Portugal. These are the top ranked countries in the world, and they are in pot 1. For pot 2, is Denmark, the Netherlands, Germany, Mexico. Germany are 2014 champions, and there's a place for United States of America. Ghana's force in the last 3 World Cups, 2006, 2010, and 2014. Switzerland are also there. Croatia, finalists of the 2018 edition, and Uruguay, the country that sank the hearts of Africa with a dagger during the 2010 World Cup, where they beat Ghana via penalty shootout after 1-1 stalemate. In pot 3, it is Senegal, it is Iran, Japan, Morocco, Serbia, Poland, South Korea, and Tunisia. And in pot 4, we have the 2021 African Cup of Nations host, which is Cameroon. We've got the likes of Australia. It is going to be either Australia, United Arab Emirates, or Peru. And we'll have New Zealand or Costa Rica, Ukraine or Scotland or Wales. And we'll also have Saudi Arabia, Ecuador, Ghana, Cameroon, and Canada. These are the pause for the FIFA World Cup draw that will be happening later tonight. And finalists for the 2020 Euro Championship, England is an opponent. Ghana's assistant coach, George Boateng, is hoping the Black Stars will be facing in the draw of the FIFA World Cup. He was speaking to my colleague, Orikun Ampofo.
To be fair, I think it hasn't sunk in yet that I can think that Ghana is actually in the draw. Yeah. But yeah, it's one that I think the whole world obviously will be anticipating and looking at the draw, which team or country they're going to have. I think that if you are at the World Cup stage, you want to draw against the best countries. So for me, it would be amazing if Ghana would draw against England, as an example. Why? Because obviously everybody knows that the head coach is Gareth Southgate. I played with him for 6 years. He managed me for 2 years. I still speak to him on a regular basis where we exchange details and ideas. So it would be amazing for me if Ghana would draw against England. Yes, they are, I think, FIFA ranking number 2 currently. But it would be fantastic to play against the stars. Imagine, our Ghanaians playing against the likes of Sterling, Jack Grealish, Harry Kane. This would be amazing. So England, definitely. Second, obviously, I grew up in Holland, so I think it would be amazing also if Ghana would draw in the group of Holland. I'm not putting us in the group of death, because then we will have no chance. But I'm very close to Holland, so it would be fantastic if we draw against Holland. And then because of Otto, I think if we draw against Germany, it will also be amazing for Otto, because obviously his background with an attachment with Germany. The likes of France obviously are there. You got Brazil, but yeah, I think if we can draw against 2 top countries, it would be amazing.
And how, if Ghana were to draw 2 top countries, how would that affect your expectations?
bearing in mind that Ghana has progressed in at least 2 of the 3 World Cups that they've been to?
Yeah, well, it won't change much because I think we all know that Ghana is going there to compete, to challenge. And every game, every country you come up against will be difficult. Equally, as you've seen, before the game against Nigeria, there were loads of fans who were thinking that Nigeria would beat Ghana comfortably. And Nigeria was heavily favorites to win. In football, especially in finals, favorites don't always win. So at the World Cup stage, even if Ghana is an underdog, it's not a problem. It actually takes the pressure away from some teams because they feel like they've got nothing to lose. So therefore, they can go out there and play freely. But it'll be amazing, I think. As a coach, and I was like that also as a player, as a coach, I always want to test myself against the best. So if the best is England or France or Brazil, please let's play against them.
Let's come back to Ghana and talk about Ghana Premier League football, where on Thursday night, Kumasi Asante Kotoko were held to a 1-1 stalemate by Kaola United, following a red card that was handed to skipper Abdul Ganiu. And their head coach will be speaking after that, where he described the performance as an amazing one.
It's Thursday evening football and it's live here on Adepa Channel 247. This evening, the Porcupine Warriors are taking on Karela United. It's a match day 22 encounter with Kumasi Asante Kotoko, as we said earlier on. Current league leaders, Karela have amassed a total of 29 points and in the 9th position. This evening, they dare the strength of the Porcupine Warriors in a 90-minute duel, which should bring out nothing but the best in the two sides. Kotoko get us underway in this game.
He's joined the Porcupine Warriors and gradually cemented his position in midfield.
Chance coming the way of the Porcupines.
Deadliest player on the field to take that advantage. I mean, not a good defender from Karela, and it was Emmanuel Okran.
Ball has been taken away from him. Now the opportunity falls to Karela. Here's Kelvin. Kelvin is on the one-on-one situation. He's tripped from behind.
It was a perfect pass, brilliant pass to locate Kelvin Under and Kotoko. Defenders were in trouble here, and Ganiu, the last man.
He goes into his back pocket, and it is the red card. Ganiu is off. And it's pushed through nicely into the 18-yard box. Here's Kelvin. Gets the cross in. Took a ricochet. And Kwame Ba to the rescue, got in a timely save. Chipped into the 18-yard box. Oh! That's the first goal for Karela. And is that man who's been probing and joining the attack as and when.
And when was the Kotoko defending here? There's no defending. And left alone, Kelvin Ando. Karela had lost back-to-back games.
Opportunity now for Kotoko. Direct equalizing goal there.
And then the final ball, always lucky, but this time around, Imoro got it right. Straight through the path of Ituga with composure and calmness will finish that one.
Referee Maxwell Hansen brings the half to an end. And look at them go. About getting ready, here we go with the second half of the game. It's bend one round the wall. Dealt with nicely by Che. A little bit of a rustle in that, but and now for Karela, they come forward now. An opportunity. Kwame Ba to the rescue. Second time of asking, he makes a firm save. Now Kelvin, can he go around his marker? Yes, he does. Oh, good save from Kwame Ba by Nete. Ball flicked back, but Lamte could not find his bearing. It's Imoro with a drive. Wicked deflection. Maxwell Hansen believes that we've had enough. But at the end of it all, Kumasi Asante Kotoko 1, Karela 1.
Super performance, absolute discipline, absolute awareness, absolute confidence, the desire to win. everything was there. Regards to the record, I think it changed our team shape. We had to now look for a different approach, and you could see as if we were rather 11 men on the field. I'm happy about their performance. Even with a man down, they were able to fight to try and win. Only that we couldn't win.
Now, what does this result mean to your title aspirations? You didn't lose though, but it was only 1 point you were able to get here. Moving forward, what does this result do to your title aspirations?
I'm still on course. I mean, we still have, before this game, the number of points, point difference is still there. 8-point gap, which means we need to go down 3 games before anybody can surpass us. So it doesn't change anything.
And talking about the performance not changing anything, the Porcupine Warriors will be in action again as we enter match day 23 of the Ghana Premier League. Let's take a look at the fixtures for match day 23 in the competition. Kumasi Asante Kotoko sit at the top, and they have got 8 points more than second place Ediana Stars. And on Saturday, we'll have House of Oak versus Midiama SC at the Accra Sports Stadium. On Sunday, it is Bechim United versus Great Olympics, Kim Faisal versus Asante Kotoko, Legon Cities versus Ashanti Gold. Wafa will come up against Ediana Stars, who are 2017 champions of this competition. 11 Wonders will come up against Accra Lions. They were also in action yesterday. Kerala United will play Elmina Sharks. Bibiano Gold Stars versus Dreams FC. And on Monday, it is Real Tamale United versus Brekum Chelsea. Real Tamale United, they are beginning to feel the impact of play in the top level of Ghana football. As they say, lack of money is the reason why most of their key players do not show up for training session, and it is affecting the performances of the team. This is how we wrap up AM Sports here with me, Muftau Nabila Ablai. However, you can head on to my joyonline.com and read some more sports stories. We appreciate your company. As always, the show continues right after this.
Right, so we're still deliberating on the E-levy, just as the minority has taken it to the Apex Court. They did this on the 30th of March, filing their case there. And as you heard, one of their members talking about what he anticipates, that is what they see. But we'll leave it to the courts as they slug it out there. But joining the conversation to help us break down the matters into bite-sized pieces, we have Bobby Banson, a lawyer and a law lecturer at the Ghana School of Law. Bobby, a very good morning to you.
Good morning, sir.
This morning, dear Charlie, you make me feel like...
You introduced me as a law lecturer at the Ghana School of Law.
Oh, so you're returning the favor, right?
This Charlie, something blowing my cover.
Are you? But we're grateful that you've taken the time to join us this morning. Even before we get into the court issue proper, you followed the Abdullahi versus the Attorney General, the state issue, and the court's directive when it comes to what constitutes a quorum on specific instances. Let's take away what it said about deputy speakers voting and all of that. That doesn't come into the picture here. When you look at it, upon a true reflection of Article 1041 of the Constitution, what would be your understanding of what the court in that earlier ruling said?
Well, I believe that what the court said would not necessarily be in contention. They were very clear that the quorum for voting is not the same as the quorum for conducting business. They have said that when it comes to one of them, I'm careful because I would not want to be seen to be prejudicing the outcome of the suit that has been filed by the minority. The words that they used lent to no ambiguity or vagueness. Were very clear that as far as they are concerned, when they interpret the provisions that were brought before them, the quorum for conducting business is not the same as the quorum for voting. And they explained the instances for both, where the deputy speaker exercising his constitutional rights or mandate on behalf of its people, is entitled to vote on issues that have been debated already, but may not be entitled to participate in the business like the debating and what have you. And so I believe that if what the minority says happen in Parliament, they think that it contradicts what the Supreme Court had said, they have clearly exercised their right to go back to the Supreme Court for what I would say clarification and then further application of their supposed interpretation to the facts that happened in Parliament on Tuesday, I believe.
And I know you're walking a fine line, trying to be cautious here, because especially as the matter is in court, you don't want to appear to be leaning towards this or that end. But did you follow proceedings in Parliament on the day when the e-levy was passed? Did you see what happened?
Yes, we were following on social because at the same time we were watching and celebrating Ghana's football match. But then, yeah, I managed to follow bits and pieces as it developed, as the story developed.
What did you make of the proceedings? The Right Honourable Speaker saying that, well, the motion could go ahead, the walkout, the subsequent walkout, and all the matters arising. I mean, the picture is that some have claimed that, look, you were walking out, but in the process of walking out, the motion was tabled and we voted. That, when you put that side by side with, I believe, what Article 1091 of the Constitution says about those in the chamber who are present and voting, how do you reconcile them? Because the Constitution says in 1091 that these people must be present and voting. The majority side has said, no, in this instance, we voted with a voice vote, which counts as a vote, and that is also being disputed. But you guys had not left, not all of you had left the chamber at the time. And so those of you who were left, technically, added to our numbers, though they were not voting. What is your understanding of that?
I believe you were referring to 1041.
So there's 1041, and there's also 1091, which comes into the picture when it comes to those who are participating in the process. In other words, they must be present and voting. That is the standing orders. 1091.
Okay, standing orders. Yes.
So 1041 of the Constitution, 1091 of the standing orders.
You know, for me, it becomes a factual issue. And when I was discussing it with some of the colleagues when the suit was filed, my colleagues, I was hoping that the Supreme Court may, even if it wills, call evidence to confirm the number of persons who were present at that time. So that, because that is the contention. Were they present? Were they walking out? Should they be considered as in the process of walking out, once they were physically within the chamber and were not outside the doors, whether they will be considered as being present, whether or not the fact that they have demonstrated their intention not to participate, whether they should not be considered as present, or it's about physical presence or mental presence. I mean, using it the word loosely, the mental presence, I mean. So it becomes another angle where the Supreme Court may decide to interpret, because the Constitution and the standing orders only said those who are present and entitled to vote. So if the majority, and I believe that assertion was confirmed by the Speaker in his analysis, think that, okay, you said you will not participate, you were walking out, but at the time that we tabled the motion, we did the vote, some of your members had not yet left the chamber, then, you know, there could be, it becomes an issue for factual determination. I believe that as the matters were developing, there were arguments that, okay, the numbers that the Clerk of Parliament recorded as being present are not entirely true, or those that were recorded as being absent are not entirely true. So that those become matters for factual determination to aid the interpretation of those constitutional provisions and perhaps the provisions of the standing orders.
So in this instance, it is clear that we have a case on our hands which could bring us to another determination from the Apex Court. And do you feel that could also give clarity to maybe some of what the Apex Court itself told us in the Justice Abdullahi case. Do you feel that this matter cropping up at this time could lead to further clarity from the Apex Court, or maybe even a shifting, no matter how minuscule or small it is, from its earlier position? Because now the Apex Court itself has said that, stated categorically, if you want quorum for some of these matters, you need 138, one half of Parliament. If it says anything different, it might mean that it may have shifted a bit from its earlier position. Would that necessarily be the case?
Well, the Supreme Court has confirmed over the period that they have the jurisdiction to clarify previous decisions that they have made. If in putting into practice that decision, there tend to be practical difficulties or ambiguities. So I believe that this will be a perfect situation where the invocation of their jurisdiction by the present action may result in them clarifying how to put in practice some of the things they have said. And I will not be surprised if they go back to the Justice Abdullahi decision and then clarify some of the things they have said. I do not think that they will shift the essence or the ratio or how they interpreted the provisions in the Justice Abdullahi case with the present suit filed by some members of the minority. But I think that if they deem it, they have always said that they have the jurisdiction to clarify some of the things they had said in earlier cases. And so they would clothe themselves with that jurisdiction and then bring clarity to the subject, how the things they had said in Justice Abdullahi could be operationalized in the day-to-day running affairs of Parliament. You know, it will lead to the counter-argument that the Supreme Court seems to be engaging in, or to be interested in the proceedings in Parliament and gradually setting out the rules of procedure in Parliament.
Would that be a problem? Would that in itself be a problem?
I don't think that on the face of it that would be a problem, because the Constitution says that Parliament would pass standing orders to regulate proceedings in Parliament. But if they have passed standing orders that have become the subject of interpretation, because the standing orders seek their source from the Constitution, so there will have to be constitutional interpretation, which is the reserve of the Supreme Court, which will have an effect on some of the provisions of the standing orders. Right. I think that the Supreme Court will not be, as has been argued, be rewriting the rules of Parliament to regulate its procedure, but may be interpreting it and then giving clarity as to how what they have interpreted should be enforced. If there was no ambiguity, we would not have this situation where the minority would have gone to court. So the same decision by the Supreme Court, the majority is interpreting and applying it differently. The minority seems to be interpreting and applying differently. So we go back to the people who gave that decision and tell them to clarify what they meant.
Right. I'm not asking you to deliver a verdict, but prima facie, on the face of what we've seen, and I would have us get a bit into the petition, put together by Minority Leader Haruna Idrisu and other members from the Minority Caucus, Mahama Yariga and Okujetua Blakwa. On the face of it, do they have a case? On the back of what Justice Abdullahi versus the Attorney General or the state revealed, do they have a case?
Of course they have a case. We are talking about two very senior legal practitioners. I mean, Dr. Ayine and Mahama Idrisu. They will not go to the Supreme Court on cases that are frivolous or they do not think that are worthy of interpretation. If you read the reliefs they are seeking from the Supreme Court would have to do some work to either clarify what they had said or interpret what happened in Parliament. They are asking for a bail or the proceedings that led to the passage of a very important bill to be declared a nullity. I believe that they have a case, and the Supreme Court would entertain the action, look into the facts, apply the law, and come up with a decision that they deem just.
So do you feel it is apt then, and I ask this, of course, political talk, but when the Deputy Majority Leader, Alexander Afenyo-Markin, says this case they're taking to the Supreme Court is dead on arrival, basically nothing in there?
Well, it's like you said, it's political talk. If it is dead on arrival, the Supreme Court or the case would be determined as such. Whatever it is, there would be a decision. There are provisions in our law that allows cases that the opponents think are dead on arrival to bring an application to have same struck out on the fact that they discloses no cause of action or they think that the action is frivolous. If the deputy majority leader is of that strong opinion, I believe he can also exercise his right to bring an application to have the matter dismissed as such. But I doubt that would be entertained. I do not think that it's a trivial issue that should be taken on the face of it. Our democracy is developing. Our judiciary is there, has always been there to guide us through this process. And so if a Ghanaian citizen or no mean persons like Dr. Ayini and Mahama Idrisu and Samoku Jeto decide to go to the Supreme Court to have an interpretation of of proceedings in Parliament and just oppose it to whether it is constitutional or not, I do not think that we should trivialize it. Like you said, maybe it's a political talk.
Right. So let's get into the content of this entire statement or this petition, the reliefs that are being sought. So, for example, a declaration that on the authority of the Supreme Court case of Justice Abdullahi versus the Attorney General, dated the 9th of March 2022, the constitutional quorum for decision-making and voting in Parliament within the meaning and intent of Article 1041 of the 1992 Constitution is 138 members and not 136 as the NDC evinces took place on the day when the e-levy was passed. A declaration that in accordance with, again, Article 1041 of the 1992 Constitution and on the back of the Justice Abdullahi versus the Attorney General case, when the Right Honourable Speaker of Parliament put the question for the second reading of the Electronic Transfer Bill 2021, Parliament lacked the required quorum. Then there's also the point, a further declaration that by reason of relief B, the purported vote on the motion for the second reading of the e-levy bill 2021 by the 136 members of Parliament was in contravention of Article 1041 and therefore null and void and of no effect whatsoever. It goes on and on. Do you feel, in this instance, I mean, just school us, is it possible for the court to grant some of the reliefs and take out some of the reliefs? In this instance, I pose the question because all of it is hinged on 1041. And any decision stating that the quorum number is this, clarifying what they did when it comes to the Justice Abdullahi case would mean that a confirmation of the 138. Is there any room, basically, to squeeze out of this? Because it appears it's either going to be that they stick to what they said before, or they are now, in giving further clarity, they are going to seem to be moving away from what they said. I don't know whether you get what I mean here.
Yes, I think the petition filed, the action filed by the minority is premised on their understanding of the ratio in the Justice Abdullahi case. And so you notice that the relief they are seeking for is they are telling you that this is what you said in the Justice Abdullahi case.
Right.
And applying it to the proceedings on that 29th day of March in Parliament, what happened is in contradiction to what you have said in the Justice Abdullahi case, and therefore a nullity. So the Supreme Court would first have to confirm whether what the minority is saying they said in the Justice Abdullahi case is actually what they said. So that if the Supreme Court confirms that this is what we said in the Justice Abdullahi case, and this is how it should be interpreted and applied, then it means that we are determining whether or not the quorum should be 138 or 139. You understand me?
Right.
As it were. Then if the Supreme Court makes that determination, I believe then now it becomes an issue of fact. Whether there were 136 members or there were 138 members. And
Right.
that the Supreme Court may have to call evidence to determine the number of persons that were in Parliament on that day.
Right.
I do not think that this is a situation where the Supreme Court may grant some of the reliefs and may not grant others, because if you read it carefully, they are all intertwined. so that most of the reliefs are based on one. So like it's foundational. So okay, you agree with this, then these are the consequences of what you have agreed on. So that once the Supreme Court confirms that okay, the premise on which your action is based, i.e., what we said in the Justice Abdullahi case is actually what we said, then it becomes issues of fact to determine whether or not the numbers in Parliament met that quorum that we had laid down in the Justice Abdullahi case. And I think that it will become an interesting situation.
It will indeed be an interesting situation. And this in itself is quite a quagmire that the court finds itself in because, I mean, it's tricky. We've had the Speaker of Parliament come out to back the decision that he took on the day to allow the vote to go on and all of that. We've also heard from, well, in fact, not hearing from, the President expressed his gratitude to Parliament for having passed the bill into law, with he himself giving his assent to it to make it law firmly. But by doing so, some feel that with the statement or the comments by the Right Honourable Speaker of Parliament, and also buttressed by the signing into law of the bill by Mr. President, they are in a way stifling the possibility of the apex court to do otherwise or state otherwise. So clarify for us, the mere signing of this into law, does it have that effect? Could it compromise in any way the Supreme Court's decision? Let's start from there.
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. The Supreme Court can declare an act of parliament a nullity as being in contravention with the provisions of the 1992 Constitution. And that their jurisdiction has been invoked presently by the action of the three members of the minority. Under Article 2 and under Article 131, I believe, they didn't state B, but I believe particularly B, of the 1992 Constitution. So the fact that the Speaker of Parliament had said what he did, he thinks is right. The fact that the President has assented the bill and made it law does not in any way undermine, it doesn't render the suit before the Supreme Court moot. It doesn't undermine the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court to declare what the proceedings that occurred in Parliament as a nullity. In law, we say that you cannot put something on nothing and expect it to stand. And so once the foundation of that act of assenting to that bill, which is the proceedings on that day, is declared a nullity by the Supreme Court, every other thing that is based on that 29th March automatically will fall because the foundation has been swept off. And so the Supreme Court can still proceed and then declare or grant the relief sought for by those who have filed the present action. And then by extension, whatever act or the fact that the President has assented to that bill would also be declared a nullity. My only challenge legally is if the Ministry of Finance or the executive, as it were, asks the GRA to start implementing the e-levy from today.
Well, they've spoken about the 1st of May, so that wouldn't really come into question.
No, I mean the 1st of May.
Right.
And they start collecting monies. And the Supreme Court delivers the verdict or the decision and says that it was a nullity. Right. What happens to the monies that have been collected?
But is that not even before you continue with that? So that is even more reason for the apex court to approach this swiftly, isn't it? Because if it gets into that, then it could also imply, I mean, once people start, transacting and the levy is, taken out of, the component is taken, this could basically mean there's no turning back, right?
Yes, yes, it could mean that there's no turning back in terms of those who would have paid the levies. Because at the time they paid, it was law. So you cannot, do that. But the Supreme Court, apart from election petitions, there's no law that states that when an action is filed, it should be heard within a particular time. The Supreme Court may, because the Chief Justice even may or has the right to ask the bench to sit even during the holidays.
Right.
The court will go on the Easter break, I think from the 15th, and will resume from the 25th or so. And so unless the Chief Justice deems it very fit, may decide to ask that this case be fast-tracked so that the times for filing responses and whatever and sitting and legal argument will be done before the 1st of May. That is completely a prerogative of the Chief Justice. And if the minority, those that filed the action, thinks that it's in the best interest of justice and the country to do that, I believe that they know what to do to plead with the Supreme Court and the Attorney General, the Chief Justice and the Attorney General, to have this matter fast-tracked. But it does not in any way affect the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court to go back and say that what you have done, everything, including signing it into law, the proceedings of that 29th, is a nullity because it contradicts the provisions of Article 104. And so every single structure that has been built on that faulty foundation should be pulled down. They've always done that in the past, and nothing stops them from doing it now.
So the law as we know it is practically never retrospective. In other words, you cannot institute a law today and fault me for what I did yesterday. So in this instance, it would mean that if it went into effect, came into force on the 1st of May, and some people had made payments, and later the court quashes that decision, it means they would have lost that money. That is it. There will be no avenue of seeking redress because, like you said, it was law at the time. Just to clarify.
I do not see any legal avenue available to them because at the time they made the payment, it was law.
Right.
And until it was declared a nullity by the Supreme Court, it could be enforced.
Okay.
So I do not see how those people would benefit from the decision of the Supreme Court and go back to Parliament unless the Supreme Court specifically adds as one of those reliefs that any person who has paid money +1 to that should be refunded. But I do not see the Supreme Court doing that. I do not see the Supreme Court.
Finally, what do you think the consequences could be because look, now we've gone through the entire process and we're in the balance. Has the e-levy been passed? Has it not? It's been signed by, given executive backing by the president, and now we call it a law. But what does all of this mean? What could be the consequences if the Supreme Court strikes down what happened on the floor of Parliament when the bill was passed? What happens? What could be the consequences on the legislative body itself, on the executive, and the wider bit about securing funding for our country? I just want you to, what could be the likely consequences? Because it would create quite a thorny situation, wouldn't it?
Well, I believe it will. But there will be the social aspect, there will be the political aspect, and there will be the legal aspect. I would want to stick to the legal aspect where I think that it will not stop the majority from reintroducing the bill in Parliament.
Right.
The majority would always have the chance to reintroduce it and then do what they can do to make sure that at this time, they would have the necessary quorum to carry on the business and then conduct the vote. And so that would be it. But in terms of the court, the social, the financial impact, I would want to leave it to those who are better placed. They've said that if we don't pass the bill or we don't start collecting those monies, there'll be a large hole in our revenue. And the consequences of that are there for everybody to see. I do not think that any Ghanaian wants Ghana to go into that situation where we will be financially desperate. But I believe that a lot of people are also of the position that there are better means or better ways to raise the necessary funds. But that is a political decision. And I believe that those that are paid by our tax money to take those decisions on our behalf or to think through those processes would be better placed. If the majority of the Ghanaians think that they've not thought through the processes in a way that benefits all of us, we would have an option to let our voices or our dissent be heard come election day.
Well, Lawyer Bobby Banton, thank you so much for engaging us and giving us insight. After the Supreme Court delivers its ruling, we'll come back to you and see what you make of it. But we're grateful for your time, sir. All right, so that was Bobby Banson joining us there. When we return, we'll continue with some talk about the e-levy, but we're going to be focusing on the State of the Nation address and, economically speaking, what is in there for all of us as a country. We're going to be engaging GUTA, we're going to engage the Peasant Farmers Association, among others, to gauge how they feel about what Mr. President said and what the impact is going to be on all of us. All of that after the break. Stay. So in the last SONA, Mr. President said that the road to economic recovery would be hard and long, but that as a country, it is a road we must travel, regardless of the pain or the bitter pills we must swallow. Well, we talk about exactly that as we digest the e-levy, which has now been made law, having been given the assent of Mr. President, among other economic measures that are going to be brought to bear by this administration to shore up our economy. We'll hear from former Minister for Finance, Seth Tekpe, who joins the conversation. We also have the President of GUTA, Dr. Joseph Obeng, also joining the conversation, Executive Secretary, Chamber of Petroleum Consumers, Duncan Amoah, and a President of the Peasant Farmers Association of Ghana, Mr. Charles Nyaba. And later, we'll also be gauging the mood in town as we prepare our wallets for the e-levy. So you stay with us. But let me just say a very good morning to all of you joining us. Honorable Seth Tekpe, Duncan Amoah, Dr. Joseph Obeng, and Mr. Nyaba, Charles Nyaba. Gentlemen, thank you for joining the conversation.
Thank you.
And I know some are going to be on phone, so eventually I will hear from them as well. Let me start with you, Dr. Obeng. I had an interaction with you before the SONA was delivered, and you made mention of some of the things you would expect to hear from the SONA. Let's start from there. Having listened to the State of the Nation address, did it fulfill what you were hoping to hear? Did it give you hope?
Yeah. First and foremost, most of the things that we were expecting from the president, from the trading community, was what the finance minister came out with this press conference. And so we know that the president came to reiterate whatever the finance minister have said. For me, the most important thing is for the government itself having recognized that there is a problem, there's a crisis in the economy, and that they are trying to solve it. That recognition alone is very satisfying for us. And the fact that they've come along to sacrifice, made some sacrifices to the extent that they are reducing expenditure on their own, means that they are bound on taking the rest of us along to also make sacrifices. And so this is what I would say. And for the finance minister to have come with measures that seeks to stabilize the currency is also very heartwarming and welcoming. You see that with the pronouncement of the 2 billion injection into the system alone, have been able to curtail the increase in the forest, and then the city have gained some kind of strength. This is what we were seeking. And then for the Bank of Ghana's base rate to have been increased, that's where we also have a problem, because they increase it along the lines of the inflationary trends. And the inflationary trends this time, the push factor has been the depreciation of the cedi. So I think the main focus should have been on the depreciation of the cedi to stabilize the currency so that it will suppress the inflation. Otherwise, they are creating another layer of burden of doing business. With regards with the yield levy, as we have all been saying, what we can say is that for the trading community, we seek expansion of the tax net That's what, whenever we make input, that's what we have been petitioning the government to expand the tax net so that it does not put unnecessary pressure only on the import duties that we have. For that reason, we have also even petitioned the government to, for about 2 years, to tax the e-commerce, for which they have also initiated, and then now the e-commerce is being taxed, because then the online business or the e-commerce is urging the traditional business out of business.
Right.
So expanding the tax net is very important for us. But the issue here is whether the rate being charged is affordable or not. That's what we have to think about, and especially we also have to think about the double taxation aspect in it. And with the passage of this, we are going to sit down with Ghana Revenue Authority to see if whatever we will pay through our sales in the yield levy, they will be allowed to deduct it from our returns. These are the issues that we'll be thinking about.
I'll come back to you briefly later on for another quick take or swipe at the e-levy as it is now, 1.5%, its approval, and what moving forward you are hoping can be done with it, how it will impact your group and how it can be leveraged for development. But do hold for me. Let me bring in Honorable Seth Tekpe as well. So for the rest of you, Honorable Seth Tekpe together with Duncan Amwa and Mr. Nyaba, I'll pick your quick thoughts, a first round of thoughts, and then we'll get into the main matters after that. But let me start with Mr. Nyaba. For you, as far as peasant farming is concerned, I know it's a tricky situation, but how much hope was brought to bear from the finance minister's proposals for the economy, and on the back of the SONA as well? Putting the two together, how much did you take out of that?
And let me also thank my colleague panelists. So the day the State of the Nation was being read, we were in Kumasi. We brought all our executives from all the 16 regions to plan for the new season. So whilst we were there, we were following, and then we were passing the information to members. In fact, there is one thing that came through. Members were concerned that looking at the current state of the sector in terms of cost of production, in terms of limited availability of food items, they were actually very hopeful that they would hear government direct intervention that we're going to address some of these things. But if you follow the statement very well, you realize that much has not been said in terms of what government is going to do to cushion farming. Even if you listen to what the president said, he was talking about what they've been able to do with the planting for food and jobs, what they've been able to do in terms of renovating irrigation dams that were created by a Champon regime. We've not heard much about what the president or what the government was going to do in terms of their own initiatives, like the one place, one dam that has become so useless. So we were worried that nothing was said about that. Now, our concern is that if you look at the current state of the economy, the reason why many Ghanaians are complaining has to do with non-availability of food. And non-availability of food is due to high cost of production, which is caused by poor implementation of some of the programs under the Planting for Food and Jobs. Some of them are not within the control of government, which we admit. In terms of, in the area of inputs, realize that cost of producing fertilizer, coupled with the problems that has to do with Ukraine and Russia, impact of COVID has actually affected availability of inputs. Notwithstanding, for you to now go further and still reduce amount of investment in that area that will push farmers to be able to stay in business, I think we were not too happy about that. And then we hope that in going forward, maybe to see how best that will be addressed.
Right. So we'll get into some of these issues, especially as this is your preliminary take. But did I hear you say the one village, one dam, which has become so useless? I know irrigation is one of the things you're very passionate about. But just to clarify, has it become that useless? Is that what you were saying?
Yeah, so if you listen to the president, you realize that he did not even mention about the one village, one dam, which is one of his own special initiatives. He rather talked about innovation work that has been done on the tunnel irrigation, on the pump irrigation project. But these were dams that were created by a champion regime since 1972. So if these dams are so useful that we can go and do, and this is a project activity that has always been taking place. When we work overtime, they get filtered, so you have to put in money to dispel them and then to continue. So if the president would rather focus on dams that were done by a regime in 1972 and failed to mention about his own initiative that he put so much money in there, that tells you the state of those dams. The one village, one dam concept for us was perfect because when you go to countries like China, Israel, India, they actually develop their agriculture sector through initiatives like this. Israel, for instance, the lands are so bad that because of their ability to convert the desert and the rocky lands into irrigable areas by supplying water all year round, they're able to do their businesses. But in our case, that's not the case. Look, in previous days, by this time around, if you went to places like Nkranza, Weki, Techiman, Edra, Kintampo, by now, people had already planted their maize and they are applying the inputs. But if they go there, the lands are still there because the climate has changed. When you go to the northern sector, the situation is even bad. So with the one village, one dam, we thought it was coming to address those issues. But because the implementation was so bad, nothing has been done and those dams are not being used. When you go to most of the communities where these dams are situated, they are dry. There is no single water in the dam. And no agricultural activity is taking place there. So it's an area that we still expect that the government will take a second look going forward to see how best we'll be able to correct the default so that we'll be able to actually stay in business. Ghana Meteorological Agency sound a warning that we are likely to have limited rainfall this year, and the patterns to the varieties are going to be very, very high. So it means that what we are even experiencing is likely to be worse in this year than what we are experiencing today. And irrigation is the way to go.
Irrigation is the way to go. Do hold for me. Let me also bring in Duncan Amwa. Duncan joins the conversation as well. Mr. Amwa, a very good morning to you.
Ben, good morning to you, to my co-panelists and your viewers.
Right. And let me just say that I'll be moving on to Mr. Tekpa as well shortly. I just want some initial thoughts and then we can get into more substantive matters. Your take on the back of the SONA. We've not had an interaction in terms of energy, in terms of what has been said, just a re-echoing of what the finance minister has said. And of course, I've interacted with the likes of Senor Hosi after this, who have spoken about plans and hopes for even more to be done in terms of decreasing fuel prices at the pumps so that, for example, the transport fare hikes will be stalled. Your quick take on the president's SONA, preliminary comments.
Well, Benjamin, quite clearly, Ghanaians have gone through a lot of rough ride lately, and expectation is that something would be done to ameliorate the suffering of these vulnerable Ghanaians. And it was our hope initially that the finance minister's announcement on steps being taken to give some respite to Ghanaians would indeed go into that word, respite. Unfortunately, it was more of cut. They were cutting back on this. They are spending, especially on their own appointees. If you cut back spending on appointees, you save the kitty something, but how does that get to Benjamin? I don't know, but it doesn't really give anything much to Benjamin other than, a beautiful story being told to the ears that fuel coupons are cut and certain allowances of certain institutions are cut. If you cut them, exactly what comes to Benjamin? Those are the questions that we, the everyday people on the streets, would be asking. The state of nation, I doubt if I really came across anything really, really new that we had not probably been told of. Aside, of course, some of these figures that the president did put out, which has also generated a whole lot of controversy and, in some aspects, furore. And people are genuinely asking for basis of some of those numbers.
You're speaking, for example, about the roads, the kilometers of roads that the government says in 5 years it has covered. That's what you're referring to, right?
Exactly, Benjamin. I do think that genuinely, where you have that amount of roads constructed or that amount of roads improved, you may not even need the government to say. You would see that all around you. And that is not the case. There are quite a lot of terrible road spaces and stretches across the country. Yet you hear a lot of, strong numbers, and you wonder, is it the same country that, we all move up and down within, or these things are happening in other places that we do not have access to and cannot see? Benjamin,
a quick clarification. So before you get into your wrap for this bit, quick clarification. They have said that it includes spot improvements and so many other little bits when it comes to our roads, and not necessarily that they are all new constructions of roads. But the problem is with the word new that was used by Mr. President, because then it paints the picture that these are all new constructions. So just a bit of clarity there.
Well, Ben, what all of us are asking for in this country is improvement. We would want to see a lot of improvement in the infrastructure, social amenities, social services, and support systems. We would also want to see a situation where the cascading inflationary figures, you go to buy Ideal milk to this morning, by evening the same shop is gone up by some 10-20%. You pick an item Monday, by Friday there's some, adjustment in prices. I was reading a notice not long ago from some of the cement distributors indicating they are no longer going to be able to distribute cement now on the free basis they used to do, and that if you want the cement delivered, you now have to pay for it. These are things that increase baseline and, cost of living for the average person. The first quarter has ended. Fortunately, our economic lives are not ended. Fortunately, the economic situation can still be improved. It will be our hope that this second quarter, whatever steps that need to be taken, especially on the forex front, the Bank of Ghana will not just pay lip service, Benjamin, but would actually get down to work and work so hard so that the BDCs, like they have indicated earlier, once the BOG can, grant them certain forex concessions or rates that they could apply in their importation, they could work to reduce fuel by 1 Ghana cedi immediately. We are expecting to see that today. And so Ghanaians are literally on edge. awaiting some relief. Where that relief will come from, Benjamin, we are not going to get that from the 15 pesos on petrol. No.
Right. So
the 1 cedi might be some relief, but how soon that will come? As of this morning, the roving team are still out there checking which of the pumps have adjusted downwards. We've not recorded one as of this very time that we're speaking. We need to.
When you say your roving team, is that COPEX roving team? COPEX roving team.
Exactly. The team are out there monitoring to see how much fuel probably would, come down for, especially for the new window that just began.
Right.
We've not recorded a single of the OMCs reducing prices.
Okay.
Let it be put on record that Ghanaians are really expectant. We are all waiting. The high amounts we are paying for fuel is something we just cannot live with. If it has to come down, please do that immediately and don't wait for 2-3 days into a 14-day window before these reliefs are granted. We are walking a tightrope, Benjamin.
Thank you, Duncan, for that initial submission. Let me engage now Seth Tekpe, former Minister for Finance and Economic Planning. Thank you for joining us, sir.
You're welcome, and good morning to fellow panelists and also to your viewers, as others have indicated.
Right. And since we're going to go hard on the economy and matters tied to that, just to let you know that while I'm letting you deliver your initial or preliminary thoughts, I would give you ample time later to expatiate on most of the matters that you would set out now. So you just take stock of that. But I would want your initial take on the SONA. And we'll have time to talk about the e-levy. But the SONA and what it delivered, economically speaking, what did you get out of the SONA? Did it give hope? Did it excite you in any way? What is your candid reaction?
Yeah, thank you very much. My reaction, honestly, was similar to what Dr. Bain said in his introduction. A final acknowledgement from the president that there is something, wrong with the economy. And I think for me, that is welcome because now we can all apply ourselves to a discussion of an economy that, has problems. And then we can turn to the solutions that are being proposed. So that was my, initial, reaction. I can explain that later on. But the second thing is, I also heard, what I would say the normal refrain about how, they had inherited a bad economy, which has been disputed on several occasions. If you take the fact that this government within 3 years got more oil revenue than the whole of the 8 years of Meles Mahama put together within 3 years. So that itself was worrisome, but also the continuation of the fact that everything was rosy before COVID and everything, seems to be COVID. Just 2 points on that. First of all, there were problems before COVID, and we have said that on this show and on others. And no less, institution like the World Bank has told us, this fact. So I think if we do not face that reality, we would not see the annual cumulative effect of what is going on in the economy. Secondly, we heard just the costs and how we should be grateful to government for the measures that were taken. We did not hear on the revenue side that this is a government that has received over 5 billion and counting, almost 6 billion if you add in-kind support. And if you add, I traveled quite recently, the fact that travelers were subsidizing government by way of what they were paying, for tests you had to do from your destination from where you are coming from, and when you get into Ghana, you pay more, in excess of 400, 500, US dollars, even when the local one is $50. I'm saying that one would have thought that once you count the costs, which the minister and the president said were not contemplated in the budget, you must also accept that when you talk about budget, the revenue was also not contemplated. And therefore, if you want to tell us about the cost, then tell us about the revenue. Tell us about the loan, soft loan from the IMF, SDR, which is our own money. Talk about, the World Bank money that came in. Talk about Bank of Ghana's deficit financing, which in total is close to $6 billion if you convert, even at 5, Ghana cedis, average, not 5.5. Oh, sorry, even at 6, because we are, then you're talking about 30 billion plus in a single year to resolve one crisis. And so why are we still, in this situation? So that again, I think for me, was not balanced. And it also did not, therefore, in my view, and I stand for correction in case, you heard something else. There was no positive acknowledgement of what others had done to help the country throughout its COVID crisis. And I've mentioned some of the institutions I've mentioned. I have not mentioned those who gave us free vaccines, the role of the World Health Organization, the role of, AU and others who contributed. So it sounds to me, again, one-sided as usual. My probably two other points is that in addition to the revenues that flowed in, are you aware that even in the year of COVID, 2020, we got the most oil revenue up to that point, from the 3 oil fields, right? No mention. And even as PIAC is celebrating 10 years, of oil into the economy, we did not hear a mention of how we have performed and the invaluable contribution that oil had contributed to the economy, 3 oil fields versus 1, even when the president was comparing 2016, a single year, to a single year of crisis at 2.8, let me use a new basis, compared to the end 2020, which is also a year of crisis, of 0.4%.
Right.
And again, continue to give us the impression that everything was rosy. So these are my initial, thoughts about, the budget. E-levy, obviously, we'll be talking about it.
We'll be talking about it. Let me bring back Dr. Joseph for being president of GUTA. So for your summary, your concluding comments on this matter. We spoke about the e-levy the last time, and you expressed your support for it, conditioned on a few other things. Now, if you look at the measures that have been adopted, financially speaking, some of which were expressed at the SONA, and the e-levy coming in, what are your expectations moving forward? How are you hoping these will be leveraged to help members of your union, Dr. Obing?
Yeah. Thank you very much. When I talk about tax expansion, I was not saying I'm in support of this or against this. So let's get it right, because this thing is being discussed in emotional terms. But what I was trying to
so
say,
can you clarify for me, Dr. Obing, from where you sit?
Yeah.
Are you in support of the e-levy or not? Where do you stand?
I've said that tax payment is limited to just a few of us, and that we have been petitioning government to expand the tax net, and so anything that seek to solve that for us is good, because otherwise the importing community will always be searched. That's why we always say duty is high. Whenever government want money, you come to the importers, and that's why I'm saying that even with the e-commerce thing, we propose to government that there's the need to tax them, because the online businesses are urging us out, and that if they are not taxed, those people with the traditional businesses who have the fixed address will be edged out of business. And so we want anything that will bring parity to tax payment, and that's why the e-levy is welcoming. But as to the affordability of it, the tax rate is what it will be in contention for the people, generality of Ghanaians. And that's exactly what I wanted to say. Yeah.
Okay, and I was asking, so how do you feel, like you've just said, that it may not exactly be affordable, but you're looking at the broadening of the tax net. Is this going to positively impact your union, your members, your business?
Yeah, that's why I'm also thinking through the double taxation. Because then, if we do some of our sales through the yield levy, it might mean that our sales is taxed. Are we going to be allowed those taxes to be deductible when we are filing our tax? And so this issue also have to be solved with Ghana Revenue Authority. We have to sit down with them to see how best we can do that. But otherwise, everybody trying to pay, I believe in tax expansion, but I also believe in affordability and then fairness. So if there's an element of double taxation, we should find a way that it will be sorted out when somebody is filing his tax returns and all that, so that nobody will be settled with two double tax payments. Yeah.
Dr. Obeng, we're grateful that you joined us this morning. Thank you so much, and do have a lovely day.
But sir, can I add something?
Okay, very briefly, if you can.
Yeah, but having done all these things, I think that, you know, as we have all accepted, this is the hardest time we have to do business and also sacrifice in terms of taxes and all that. All that government will also have to assure us is value for money on some of our expenditure.
Right.
I mean, you hear that a contract has been given to MTN and it's 3 billion, the same classroom blocks and all that. The same thing when given to government will be about 1 million, 1 million Ghana cedis, where MTN will charge, will pay 300,000. So these are the leakages, the wastage in the system. They have to inspire some sort of comfort and confidence for us for tax payment. Otherwise, we are being overstretched. And because even when we are able to plug the leakages, the wastage and all that, it's also in a way enhancing on our resources. But if we do not do that and we get the money and then we overprice contracts and all that, then of course it does not also give us the hope and then the encouragement to pay or do our bit. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dr. Obeng. Again, do have a lovely day. Let me move on to Charles Nyaba now. And you started talking about irrigation 1D, 1F, and you've shared your thoughts on that. But how about the e-levy? How does this hit you as the Peasant Farmers Association? What does it mean to you moving forward?
Thank you very much. Let me also say that there were other issues that the President raised.
Right.
And I think that it's fair for us to also comment on those ones if you think that they're doing well.
Right.
So for instance, the one district, one warehouse.
Right.
We have made a proposal over the years that looking at the level of post-harvest losses, which sometimes is accounted by lack of storage facility, these governments should facilitate building of warehouses, it will help. So that is a fantastic approach. Secondly, in terms of budget allocation, since 2017 to now to agriculture sector, we are seeing some drastic improvement. And just like my colleague just said, what we need to now be more concerned about is not only about the money that government is releasing to address expenditure in the sector, but also considering value for money. So that something that could be done, let's say, a million Ghana cedis is not being charged for 3 million Ghana cedis. And that's what we have also observed over the period. Now, in the area of e-levy, I think we have earlier on expressed our opinion. As long as we support government to increase investment in the agriculture sector, it comes with a resources. We thought that the decision to use the e-levy was going to actually take the farmers a step back in terms of encouraging them to actually be involved in the electronic transaction. You agree with me that in some few years back, farmers used to keep their money under their pillows, others on their farms. But in recent times, most of them are now involved in the e-transaction, opening bank accounts, and then doing Momo charges. Me personally, as I sit here, I transfer money if I want people to do work on the farm for me through electronic transactions. Personally, I might not have much problem with that. But as I said in our AGM 2 days ago, even due payment from farmers to us, the farmers were raising concern that now that the e-levy has been passed, it means that their dues to the organization is going to increase. When they transact, there is going to be some charges. And others are even saying that no, then now they are not ready to also do commercial transactions. So for our agriculture sector, I think looking at our constituents, we are going to be more impacted with the e-levy. And we have indicated earlier that those who are in that sector, if they will be exempted from the electronic charges, that will help a lot.
So you want those in the agri sector to be exempt from the e-levy, or would you rather have a reduction in the levy component, maybe to about 0.5%, for example?
No, okay, even though I speak for myself and I speak for the farmers, if you look at official statements, which is coming from the farmers, they were saying that they don't even think this is the time for farmers to be included in the e-transaction. And then we always say that because of the high level of risk in the sector, very few investors are interested in investing in the agriculture sector. So we always believe that if people are committed to take the risk, they should be given some special motivation to continue to be there. Because in terms of getting resources like loans and credit, there's no investor, there's no banker who is willing to deal with the agriculture sector. With all this hullabaloo of banks committing resources to agriculture, turning their attention to agriculture, if you're in the sector, you realize that all these are PSC. We have tried severally, but at the end result, it's only that you have to provide some kind of collateral. But this is a sector that we have vulnerable people involved. We have youth who competed through and they are going in. We have new people who have never been in any field of investment before they want to take it as a career. They are not able to get anything to start with. So we were actually expecting to see something in the area that is going to encourage people to continue to invest, because those who are already there are overstretched.
Right.
And some of them are even trying to pull up. So we think that apart from the State of the Nation address which was presented by the President, there is going to be a way, and we will continue to engage with the Ministry of Finance to come out with a special package.
Right.
That will actually encourage people to go in, and those who are in to also scale up their activity.
Dr. Charles Nyaba, we're grateful that you took the time to engage us this morning. We're immensely grateful for your time, sir, and we wish you the very best.
Thank you, sir.
Right. Duncan, I'm sure you're still with us. So the e-levy is here. It's been given the assent of Mr. President. What do you make of it, and how do you feel this is going to impact the generality of us, especially on the back of the fuel price hikes and the minimal decrements that we have to bear with?
In my opening remarks, I had indicated what sort of, difficulty most of us had to face in the first quarter due to rising cost of fuel, which also had another effect, cascading effect on inflationary figures, transport fares, and all of them. The biggest challenge that most will have to probably grapple with in the second quarter would now have to be adjusting to this new e-levy bit, also together with the uncertainty surrounding, petrol pricing, as to whether indeed we're going to see the cedi stabilize for this quarter in order to give some respite to the petroleum importers altogether, in order that you and I do not even wake up and the pumps have rather gone up instead of coming down. It's quite an uncertain terrain, but the introduction or addition of the e-levy is most likely going to compound the difficulties we saw in Q1. Some have said it is avoidable and you could live without it. But for quite a good number of Ghanaians whose relatives live, in other regions other than where they probably work or apply their trade, you cannot avoid the mobile money platform. And so some amount of money would invariably be going out of your wallet as far as government needing money. We would want to see the government do a lot better in Q2 than what we saw in Q1. If Q1 should repeat itself in Q2 with the introduction of e-levy, Benjamin, it will be quite difficult to see how we would all be able to scale through. But that also leaves, some room for the finance ministry to sit up and work. Bank of Ghana to sit up and ensure that the forex bit doesn't get as bad as we saw get done in Q1. And I'm sure the oil marketing companies, the BDCs, the regulators, NPA, and others would also sit up and ensure that fuel prices do not become another burden in Q2.
Right.
That is all we keep praying against, Benjamin.
Right.
Anything other than this, our woes would simply be compounded. There's a lot more work to be done, and it is our hope that this new quarter would see authorities fold their sleeves and get to work with a view to reducing the economic hardship that we all had to grapple with in Q1.
Duncan, grateful, very grateful that you've taken the time to join us. And when there are any changes, hopefully when they do come to bear, we'll reach out to you as well to find out what your take is on that. Duncan Amwa, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's use the rest of the time now to focus on the e-levy and other matters of economic context concern with someone who has been there before, Seth Tekpe. You're still with us. So what is your appreciation of the e-levy now that it has been passed? No longer at 1.75%, at 1.5%. If you have any thoughts on what transpired in Parliament recently when the bill was given approval, you can share that before you get into the e-levy proper and what it means now that it's been given presidential assent.
Thank you very much. I think I was quite educated, on the legal processes from Parliament to the Supreme Court, by your previous, hosts, the lawyer before the session.
Lawyer Bobby Banton, right.
Yes, indeed, yes. So I listened, on TV, and I was quite educated in terms of the processes and, what, the role of the legislature and the Supreme Court. So I think there's that balance, and I think he did justice, to the subject matter. So turning to e-levy, as a concept, let me say that my fundamental positions, unfortunately, have not changed. And if I may just, go through, some of the concerns, quickly, which I've expressed in the past. In the first place, e-levy is totally factored in the budget already. In fact, of the 100.5 billion that government is expecting to raise, and we may want to look at, the taking the SONA and the minister's statement together later. This year is supposed to bring 6.9, or let's say 7 billion. Before we determine, so it's part of the determination of the deficit, which is leading to the borrowing and the debt situation. So it's been factored. The impression that it is something new and would have some major change It's neither here nor there. And to give you specific numbers again, the deficit we are looking at is 47 billion. And because, certain deductions were made, some of us put the deficit at 43 billion. There was a 5 billion offset, which was, so we put it at 43 billion. 7 billion, you can see, even in terms of the deficit alone, and in terms of the 100 billion, it's not significant. It's not making any significant difference. Then in 2023, e-levy is projected to bring 7.8 billion, let's say 8 billion. So from 7, it goes up to 8 billion. And we still have a deficit of 5.5, but if you do certain adjustments again, let me say that the medium term has not impressed the markets, and so let me not even be going, there. Otherwise, we wouldn't be having, the downgrades and the rest, because these downgrades look at your program for the future. Then in 2024, it is bringing in 8.9. That is another billion is added. You can see 7, 8, now 9, and then in 2025, 10.08 or 10 billion. So there is a progressive increase of 1 billion every year, which is already factored not just in the budget, but the current year budget, then in the medium term. And it's this medium term that is not impressing anybody, So the point we are saying is, what significant difference would it make? I see it as an expedient move, to generate some revenue in the first quarter, which has passed, which is normally slow in terms of revenue generation, in order that it can help in payment of urgent expenditure. That is the most significant point that I see. Secondly, I have said that e-levy is fundamentally unfair and it's regressive. Fundamentally unfair, because it differentiates between who is using what form of payment and what that form of payment, should be taxed.
Right.
And let me give you a very good example from, my previous, panelists, especially when it came to, the peasant farmers. You saw the concern. Farmers have started putting their money from under their pillow and elsewhere which is safer, onto mobile phones. Even if it's stolen, you can be sure that maybe, it will be blocked unless, you display your PIN and other things, So we are seeing progress in terms of electronic means, digitalization, which is helping in this regard. But quite apart from the concern that's, it might have on it, if I use that phone to buy fertilizer, if I use that phone to buy any input, I'll be taxed. Whereas if my colleague farmer who didn't bother to put, phone, went to buy the same fertilizer, he paid cash at the point, he will not be paying e-levy. That's a discrimination. Where you keep your money matters. And even if both of us had our money in the bank, I could go to the bank, get the banker's draft, and use it to make the payment, assuming the bank would not accept my own check. Compared to somebody who has it, these days, it's all over. You can just press your phone. Similar to Mr. Duncan Namwa, there are filling stations which are progressing and they are using, the same technology. So I don't have to even carry cash. So long as they have, the symbol, I forget it, and you touch it, it takes the money, out. This is the progress we're making. Now it makes a difference whether I stop and I take my leather wallet from my pocket and I make the payment, or somebody goes to the shop or goes to the filling station and is using, the phone to make the payment.
And that point, will be taxed. Right, that point you make is crucial, because then people are going to try to not evade but avoid the levy. And of course, you know better than I do.
Because people
the difference is exactly.
As we are taught, Yeah, we were rational as we are taught.
Exactly.
And so they are going to, yes.
We're all rational consumers. So I just wanted to look at it from this perspective. When you look at the billion per year incremental value that we're hoping or projecting to get, is it practical? Because even on the back of our interactions with people yesterday, some people are already beginning to withdraw their money from their mobile money wallets, even when the e-levy hasn't kicked in. There's the bit about a 1 month window for education, which some say would not suffice in the first place. So when you look at this pot of issues and put that side by side with the fact that government is also collateralizing the money to raise bonds, hoping in anticipation of securing what it will from the e-levy, do you think we are going to make the projected figures? Not even in the future, forget about the future. Now, in 2022, will we meet them?
Yeah, we may not now, and we may not in the future. Unless, of course, and let's give some credit to GRA and others who advise the Ministry of Finance. They normally would have models that would tell you that this tax measure could result in this or that. That's what they are trained to do. And that's what most tax experts will caution. So it takes time, just as a concern which I had again on your network yesterday, by the Chamber of Telecom, Otasibe, pointing to the fact that it takes time for big organizations like MTN to recalibrate their electronic systems to collect the tax. Because you are dealing with IT, you're dealing with something which is programming. And if you are not careful, it might just mess up, the whole, billing, electronic billing system that they have. So it's not just, from the consumer side or from the government side, but, even from business side. So we are now bringing in some of the very practical, issues regarding the tax, which we have been talking about. But let me also point out that if collateralization were going to be any solution, we wouldn't be where we are today. Remember, ESLA, when it comes to ESLA, the energy sector levy and the enhanced road levy were quantified, and they were to be paid over a period of 3 to 5 years, which was a condition that the Ministry of Finance had to meet when it went to Parliament, gave those numbers. The amount was collateralized. Today we are told, and it's not been disputed, that the energy sector levy, is about $12 billion US. And the president again acknowledged, that this was going to be restructured, except that he mentioned again that this was inherited without mentioning the fact that ESLA, was to have covered it. And I'm saying this on authority because, in January, the Minister for Finance and the Vice President said in Washington, D.C. that they had the money assuring, the World Bank. Remember, we're doing the energy, the whole energy policy with the World Bank. That, yes, the money was intact and it was going to settle the IPP debt and others, which was worsened by the PDS, saga, and we are in that situation. So if collateralization were any solution, we would have seen a lot more. From Get Fund. Remember, Get Fund has also been collateralized, ESLA collateralized.
Right.
So many things collateralized. So what is so magical about collateralization? Which is what we're going to do with the Japan anyway. And then let me also point out that what is magical about levies? If you look at the plethora of levies that we have on the books today, they are quite significant. Several of them. If you have the e-transactions levy, you have the COVID health levy, you have, ESLA, and so many of them. Later we can go through them. So we have seen so many levies, already, being imposed by this government, in addition to the capping. Fiscal cleanup levy, National Fiscal Stabilization Levy, which was a carryover from 2015 and should have gone away. Then you do have, as you come down, the ESLA levies and the baby ESLA levies.
So it is clear.
Energy debt recovery, public lighting levy. All these are being retained. Sanitation and pollution levy. So. And these are,
pardon the interjection, we're pressed for time, we have just about a minute to go. These are levies that it is clear we have on our books, and people have complained time and again about them. But I want to find out from you. On the back of COVID-19, like you mentioned in your earlier submission, we had quite a bit of money coming to us, as estimated, 33 billion Ghana cedis. When you factor in what has been spent on COVID-19 and the fact that we have to go the way of the e-levy to shore up our economy, is there any disparity in there? Should we be asking for more, really, on the back of what we've got from COVID-19 as a windfall, so to speak, in about a minute, if you can manage that?
Thank you very much. That's the point we've been making always. And it tells you that there was crisis before we went into 2020. Otherwise, this amount was more than enough, far more than enough to have resolved the COVID, crisis, including even the Omicron, saga that came in. And this is in the government's own disclosure to the IMF. And I mentioned these references. You may want to go back to them again. The Article 4, 2019, disclosed a gap. And it gave the cost of COVID. The cost of COVID, which the government gave, was supposed to be 3% of GDP. This amount is far in excess of that. So I'm afraid we do have problems which has caught up with us. And I would ask for in closing where I started, now, let's be candid that we had problems before. Let's not pretend that the economy was rosy back then, so we can face the situation. And then let us have very concrete. We lack time, but our revenue projection is high. GRA, to give just one example, GRA did only, if you take Bank of Ghana figures, they ended the year with 67. They didn't even meet the 70 probable actual in the budget, let alone 52. And then you're supposed to be doubling this amount and earning 100. It's impossible. So we need far more, measures. And mind you, it includes the e-levy.
Well, it's a conversation that we're definitely going to continue having. But thank you so much, Seth Tekpe, for joining the conversation. Former Minister for Finance and Economic Planning. Thank you so much, sir. As we wrap, let me say a happy birthday to a bosom friend of mine, Thelma Obimpe. Today is that big day. Happy birthday to you. God bless you in all your endeavors. And for those of you who like what you're looking at, my shirt is by kind courtesy of Catherine Gordon of Catherine Garments. Locate them at Medina New Road near the Rolling Circle. You can call 0277 580050 on social media. Catherine_Garments on Instagram and Catherine Garments GH on Facebook. Now, did you know that the income of a young entrepreneur from some selected businesses is exempt from tax for 5 years? Any young entrepreneur engaged in manufacturing, information and communications technology, agro-processing, energy production, waste processing, tourism and the creative arts, horticulture and medicinal plants does not need to pay any income tax on these activities for their first 5 years of operation. A young entrepreneur engaged in business that enjoys an initial 5-year concession benefits from the following applicable tax rates for an additional 5 years. Here's the breakdown. Accra and Tema, 15%. Other regional capitals outside the 3 northern regions, 12.5%. Outside the other regional capitals, 10%. And in the 3 northern regions, 5%. I'm sure you want further clarity. You can get that from your nearest GRA office. Ghana Revenue Authority, integrity, fairness, and service. And on that note of serving you, we wrap the AM show this morning. My name is Benjamin Akakpo. Do stay for our major bulletins at 10 and at noon. Let's reconnect on Monday. Great day.